So the battle in New York City over the co-location of 3 charter schools got even more heated over the weekend as Senator Dean Skelos announced he would come to the aid of those charter schools. According to the New York Post, Skelos is, quote, outraged by the decision by Mayor Bill de Blasio to cancel classroom space to 3 charter schools that they had been expected to get for free. De Blasio approved 14 other co-locations, which is a policy that I believe is exclusive to New York City. Where space is at a premium, of course. This is only the latest chapter in a long battle over charter schools in New York State that began back in the 1990s. Joining us today is Bill Phillips of the Northeast Charter Schools Network. Welcome to the Capitol Press Room.
Thank you for having me.
So what's your take on Mayor de Blasio's move?
Well, why don't we do this first? There are so many things swirling about. We have people coming from across the state tomorrow to talk about, and obviously the New York City issues have really energized it, but you have people coming from all across the state tomorrow to talk about 3 things, and they're all about fairness. There's fairness for access to facilities, there's fairness for access to funding, and there's fairness for access to pre-K. Now, obviously the place where that has become most acute is in New York City. And obviously, we do not agree with what the mayor has been doing. If I can talk a little bit about it in detail, just last week he actually reversed the co-locations at 4 schools, 3 of which were run by the Success Network. The one that is particularly galling was Success 4, which is an existing school. There's 200 kids in that school. It's a high-performing school. It serves almost, I think it's 97% persons of color. I believe 80% of the kids are poor. The last round of tests, the ones where everybody got creamed, it was scoring at about 83% on its math and about 58% on its English, which is almost triple and almost double the state averages. So to me, to throw kids out of a school that's working that well is callous, to be polite. What's really interesting about the mayor is he's in his campaign he talked about how he wouldn't close failing schools. We just never knew he would actually close good schools.
Now, de Blasio didn't stop all co-locations.
Correct. Yeah.
Only a few, and his folks say that only because they would have required elementary school students to attend class inside high schools, or they would have required cutting programs for students with disabilities.
Yeah, this is a great question because I think it shows a pretty interesting worldview. So they talk about putting elementary schools and high schools. They don't want to do that. They're worried about students with disabilities, and they were also worried about small schools. All noble things. But the one thing they didn't want to worry about was whether or not it was actually a good school. And I don't actually understand why the first thing you would look at was whether or not it's actually a high-quality school. You take Success 4, this is the school I just talked to you about.
These are good. This is a good school.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a fabulous school.
Is co-location an issue in any other place in New York State?
No, it's not. And thank you for that question as well. The reason this has become an issue across the state is this, what we're getting back to is what is a flaw in the state law. The original state laws that was passed did not address the issue of facilities. Mayor Bloomberg, the previous mayor, actually basically tried to fix that flaw by giving charter schools access to facilities. If you talk to our colleagues in Buffalo, they are deeply sympathetic to what's going on in New York, but they've been living with this for years, and they have the same issues. And if you just think about education,
but rents in New York are nowhere near what they are in Buffalo,
and nor are the per pupils. I mean that the issue is they get less money in Buffalo and the costs are less. But the point is, if you want to have good schools, then you have to do things to make it easy to grow. And if you look at what's going on in Western New York in particular, and I think of Buffalo and I think of Rochester, where the schools are really struggling, charter schools have to be part of that solution. And there's just no way you're going to do that if the schools can't grow. And the way that they're funded now, and the fact that they have to pay for their buildings on their operating expense means that they can't be a part of that solution, and that's a problem for the entire state.
So your rally tomorrow is called Fight for Fairness for Charter Schools. Mm-hmm. So part of that fight for fairness is, as you mentioned, a fight for a place. Mm-hmm. Another part of it is a fight for funding.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And part of the reason, if you look at the facilities issue, frankly, it breaks into 2 things. We either need access to a facility or we need the money to pay for it. And I think we're not going to be ideological about that, but the issue of us paying for facilities on our operating budget, I think it's come to an end. We cannot be a viable source of good schools and keep going that way.
I think that the argument that some charter schools are doing well, you can't argue with it. They absolutely are. Some aren't.
Yep, absolutely.
There's another argument, though, and that is that money is a finite resource, okay? And while charters can pick the students that they let in the door, traditional public schools can't. You're shaking your head no, but Reuters just did a report, the federal government did a report, and Rutgers just all came out with reports saying that you absolutely do.
Yeah, so the way the law works is that kids get to apply for a school. If there are more kids than seats, you go with a lottery. I think what you're talking about in some of these other places, and I believe the Reuters report was in all these other states, not including New York.
There's some in New York. Some in New York. For example, they even mention the Success Charter School. They basically say that you can enroll fewer poor, severely disabled, and English as a second language students simply by only having the access to applications open for, a few hours, months ahead of time. So that means that parents have to submit them, and that means that the students, the kids of those parents, are more advantaged because they come from motivated families.
Yep. So let's go back. So the Success 4 school, the one you were we've been talking about, that has 15% special ed population, which I believe is very close to the New York City average. I think it's 8 for ELL. But the point in one of the things that was really interesting recently, it was just in the last month or so that the actual federal government allowed the charter schools to actually weight their lotteries to make it even easier to serve disabled kids. But by law, I go back to my original point, we don't get to pick the kids.
Even one of the people who's on your side, this guy Michael Petrelli of the Thomas Fordham Institute, an advocate of schools, is quoted as saying, we're talking about two different populations. Look, whatever the truth is, I'm not sure that we're at the point where we can compare apples and apples.
Sure. So why don't we do this? I'll flip your argument and I'll take your argument and I'll say, if I'm a parent and I'm in a place where the schools don't serve my kid real well, and I'm able to find a place that's better for my kid, why does my kid matter less? Why does my kid not get a building? Why does my kid not get equal funding?
So the Assembly today is going to pass a bill that is basically saying, look, we're going to delay the use of Common Core testing standards on students' grades and teacher evaluations. What do you think about that?
I think the whole issue with like most folks, I actually think the Common Core is good. I didn't actually have a problem with them doing the testing last year. I think this all comes down to consequences. And frankly, I don't actually have a problem with them holding off on the first year of consequences, because I thought last year the regents were very clear that the test scores were baseline. And I don't actually think you should be judged for whether or not you got your baseline correct the first time. One more thing. Susan, so I know the Assembly is saying 2 years. I just gave you 1 year. That's all negotiable. But I think the basic point is fair.
That you don't think that it's such a big deal if they hold off?
No. I actually thought it was a good idea to do the testing early, because what the testing actually does for you is it actually tells you how good of a job you've done implementing the standards. And, we got a pretty bracing response. We have a lot of work to do, district schools, charter schools, all of us. So these should comes down to consequences.
Last question. Apparently some charters aren't happy about the divide tomorrow because of the pre-K rally as well. What do you think about all that?
If you dig into what they're saying, we don't actually disagree on the end results. This is all a conversation about tactics. So, my colleagues who are not crazy about the rally tomorrow, they think we should be funded fairly. They think we should have access to facilities, and they're in favor of access to pre-K, just like the mayor. This is all whether or not they thought we should have a rally. And not agreeing on tactics, I think, is as old as advocacy itself.
Okay, but should you have a rally tomorrow on the same day?
Yeah, look, we're running out of days. It's the beginning of March.
Well, that I absolutely agree.
So sounds like we're running out of time too. I'm looking at
you're running out of time here on this show, and you're running out of time before the budget, which is of course due the last day of May. Thank you so much. Bill Phillips is the head of the Northeast Charter School Networks. You were fun to spar with. I appreciate it.
All right, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.